You're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. It's more fun to believe. Third year bonus. Oh my goodness gracious. Are we in one place for more than a minute here? I'm going to turn this down just a smidge. We are in one. Are we at the new homestead? Somewhat, kind of, maybe, possibly, temporarily, tentatively, is the answer to that. I can give you the details about all that here in a moment. Thank you for listening to Me and Paranormal You. This is your buddy Ryan Singer. Just in case you didn't know, I do stand-up comedy. That's what I've been doing for the last 20 plus years. I've been, doing it as a job for the last, 14 years, 15 years, maybe. I don't know about that. Maybe 14 years or so, 15 years. Anyway, the point is that, what is life in these journeys, these places that life will take us, oftentimes are unexpected. If you would have told me that I would be, devoting so much of my time and energy to paranormal investigations and, editing documentaries and things like that, 13 years ago, before the starting of the Mindcast, I might have understood the documentary part. I've always loved documentaries and been fascinated by the process. The paranormal part, I may have been maybe just a little surprised at. I wouldn't have been totally shocked, but little did I know what this podcast would turn into as far as where my life is now. So we just got back from another trip to the Florida location, and I got to tell you, wow, I'm starting to believe in the compartmentalization of phenomena. Meaning, I believe that phenomena can compartmentalize and show aspects of itself to you depending on what it feels like showing to you on certain trips for extended periods of time. And I also believe that it's likely that one's intention and the group intention and the group thoughts and the group think going into what ultimately was, a week-long investigation, I think that matters. And I think the different personalities that come together, the different ideas of what we might be finding or what we might be experiencing, I think that affects outcome. And, specifically, I was going into this last trip with a couple different items on the agenda, and I've kind of become the de facto organizer. I would never say leader, maybe project manager to a certain degree of organizing these trips and, trying to set it up. Everyone is contributing equal parts to the investigation. It just so happens that I'm, for the first time in my life, I guess, the organized one when it comes to, or at least I'm hyper motivated to organize and try to keep some semblance of an idea of what's going on in what we'll be doing from day to day while remaining flexible. And boy, oh boy, were we flexible on this last trip. I think a couple different people that were on the trip, Eric Connor and Matthew Jackson specifically, and a couple others, they seemed like there was a sentiment at the end of this trip that, it felt like we experienced less, but did more work, if that makes sense. And by that, I think what we're describing, or what I think that sentiment encapsulates, would be we were trying to do more measurement of very specific things, as opposed to trying to have personal, individual experiences of the paranormal, which to me is what we're there for, predominantly, and is to measure things, or to try to peer deeper into the phenomena itself to provide answers and information and insight into what's happening there for the people who live there and what they might be experiencing themselves. And so I think that's what we did. So I think that's, I don't know, is that the difference between paranormal investigation and I mean, I don't even know what you would classify the other thing as now, or just an experience, a paranormal, or the quest for experience, or the quest for knowledge, I suppose is the difference. And the knowledge comes with the experience. I imagine trying to measure the phenomena itself is trying to invoke it as opposed to provoke it, or just trying to catch it, trying to get lucky, and figuring out if possible, is it replicable? Is it something that can be summoned? Or I hesitate to use these words like invoking and summons, but they're fun words. But is it something we can initiate? Is it something we can get to happen? And then it starts to become less paranormal at that point, I believe. At least if it's has a predictable behavior to some degree. I've been all over the place, it feels like, and I've been in the city of Los Angeles for about 48 hours now, and boy, I got to tell you, I've already been to the top of Brand Park's mountain, the Verdugo Hills, and I already got some really solid pickleball in today with the West Side pickleball crew. Some old school pickleballers just pickleballing it, hitting that PB court, that PBC. Love pickleball. I think we started playing about 3 years ago. I think it was 2020, 2021. Yeah, I mean, we were definitely playing when you still had to wear masks and stuff. So it was probably 2020 when we started pickleballing it up. Anyway, really good to be back on the court. I hadn't been on the court in a while. I can barely walk right now after these last 2 days. So looking forward to doing some shows here in town very soon. Anyway, but got back from Florida, drove from Florida straight to the new apartment where I'm living. The day I start driving, a Tesla drives through the wall of the apartment out here. And, I think, I can't remember. I may have posted a photo on the Patreon. I don't think I have. But I gave a heads up to the patrons already know this. But so, yeah, a Tesla drove through the wall of one of the bedrooms. Not the bedroom I'm moving into, but it drove into the wall of the apartment and through the wall, into the wall. So making a hole in the apartment. And there's some interesting things that happen surrounding that we can get into. But basically what it means is, one of my all-time best buds, Dave Waite, very funny comedian, that was his bedroom. And luckily he was not in there because it hit right where his bed was. So he would have just been Crunch City, USA. Thank God he wasn't in there. So nobody was hurt, just property damage. But what it means is he's going to have to use the room I was going to be, setting up shop in, I believe. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I've got a dog sitting. I've got actually a couple. I stumbled into a couple like dog/house sitting gigs here in the next 2 weeks that just kind of worked out perfectly. So we're going to kind of do that. We're going to be bouncing around, floating around. I thought I'd be coming in here and dropping anchor and setting up shop. And the person who was living here previously, our arrangement is that they'll get their stuff out when they get it out, and it's a no big rush situation. So that's still happening as well. So I still got storage unit stuff. I can't unload that yet. So I'm not settled, but and I don't know when I will be settled, depending on how long it's going to take to rebuild this wall to the house, to the apartment. So who knows? It could be July by the time that happens, just in time for me to be on the road all summer. So I'm putting up some dates, by the way, on the website, ryansingercomedy.com. You can check out the tour dates. The plan is, if I can get enough of the tour dates rolling in throughout the summer and feel good enough about it, I'm going to be filming another special and recording a new album. So that's what I'm excited about as far as, like, doing that this summer. I'm really excited to be getting out there on the road. So I hope to see you at a live show. I got some of the dates already on the calendar. If you go to ryansingercomedy.com and just click on tour, I'll probably make a landing page so you can see it better, not have to go through like the Google Calendar that it syncs with. Anyway, so yeah, so a Tesla drives through the wall of his apartment, and I talk to people and they're like, "Hey, so you think this is a sign that, like, the day you're driving back, to move back into a place and where you consider to be home? I do consider Los Angeles my home. Don't you think it's a sign from the universe that maybe you shouldn't be going back there?" And I was like, well, you know what? That's very interesting you said that. And if I thought everything in the world was about me, I probably would think that. But I think I've done a lot of work to make sure I don't think that everything in the world is about me, which it most assuredly isn't usually most of the time. So, no, I don't think it's a sign from the universe that I'm not supposed to be moving back. I think it's a sign from the universe that someone needs to drive slower or more carefully, and that we can't trust robot cars to just do everything for us. But here's the interesting part about the Tesla running through the wall. The tow truck drivers, and I was not here for this, but the tow truck drivers show up within like 6 minutes of, the accident happening. And one of the people that lives here was like, hey, and they're getting ready to tow the car out of the wall of the house. And he's like, I think we should wait for the cops to show up. And then they started getting very aggressive and threatening my roommate. And, and then he said something along the lines like, don't you think you should be, don't you think we can maybe show a little more empathy right now, considering the car just ran into our house? And the guy says, here's your empathy. And he just flicks him off right in his face, like puts his hand right in his face. And then pushes him out of the way. And then when he says something else, the guy threatens to kill him. He threatens my buddy, which indicates a couple things to me, which we all know that tow truck drivers, for the most part, are just sanctioned thieves. I don't want to say criminals, but they just get to steal people's cars for a living, right? I've never been a big fan of that concept. Not all tow truck drivers, right? But so you get to just steal people's cars. Oh, well, they're not making their payments. Blah, 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 blah. It's like you're repo, like the repo man. That's one hell of a gig, right? I think it takes a special kind of person to be a repo man. Anyway, so there are tow truck drivers that save our asses. I've had my ass saved by tow truck drivers. Although I think I told the story on here about the last tow truck driver I had an encounter with, and in the middle of the night in Indiana when my car broke down driving across country, and he just starts talking about how he wants to move back to Chicago because you can kill somebody and you don't even go to jail. And then he just looks at me and he goes, what did he say? He said something along the lines of, do I look old enough to be a father? He just, like, all of a sudden, he was a younger guy. He just looks over at him. He says, and while he's driving, one of those like prolonged like lookovers where you're like, you should be looking at the road right now instead of staring at me waiting for an answer. Do I look old enough to be a father? And I was just like, I bet you're a great dad. I bet you're the best dad in the world, just because I didn't want to die that night, right? So anyway, this was after he was asking me if I travel with a gun, and I said no, I had a knife, and he starts laughing maniacally as if, and says something along the lines of, knife will never protect you. Anyway, so that was my last experience with a tow truck driver, but threatens my buddy, threatens to kill him to get out of his way. Why the hurry? Why the big rush? And, I do have a conspiratorial mind from time to time. I mean, I don't know if it sounds like I'm shitting on conspiracy theories on this show a bunch or not, but I've been in that world. 20 years ago, I was deep in the conspiracy world, and a lot of people just got into it in the last 5 years or so, 5 to 7 years, it seems like, but I was in that world 20 years ago. I know where it goes. I know how it all just ends up, everything becomes a conspiracy and nothing can be believed or trusted or real, right? It's maddening. And I don't do that. That's not how I'm going to live my life. Thinking I can't breathe any of the air, or everyone's, anyway, we don't have to get into that. But the conspiratorial part of my brain is like, oh, yeah, well, clearly the emergency response system inside the Tesla pinged off as soon as it had a collision. And, as soon as there was impact, the computer is going off and sending a message that the Tesla's been in an accident. I mean, our phones do that now. Our phones will call 911 if they think we've been in a car accident, right? If there's a major shock or something, right? And so the Tesla pings off its location that it's been in an accident. They soon realize that this is not an automobile accident. This is a Tesla running into the side of a house, which I don't know. Are they supposed to have emergency brake systems to prevent things like this happening? So they think that potentially it could be some kind of malfunction of the system. So what they do is they get on the phone, and they have their own insurance, by the way, and they have contracts. They've probably, and this is the conspiracy part of me when I say things definitively with absolutely no evidence or proof, where I say, they definitely have, contracts with tow truck companies, and they have a thing where they just say, hey, go get this Tesla right now before any cameras show up, and it's an extra $5,000. Here's $5,000. Go get that Tesla now, as soon as you can. If you can get it out of the side of a house before the TV cameras show up, or before photos start going viral of it or whatever, we'll throw in an extra $5,000. So it makes me think we should just be posting these photos and just tweeting them around. Anyway, especially on Elon's platform, on Twitter or whatever he calls it. So that's my conspiracy theory. Because why would a tow truck driver, besides just being a tow truck driver and the type of person that would do that, why would they, and again, not all tow truck drivers, but you understand what I'm saying, why would they care so much to the point where they threaten my buddy like that, and actually push him? Right. And then, of course, when the cops show up, they're a lot of help, as you could imagine. They laugh at the description of what has happened, about how they threatened them and pushed them, and the cops just laugh and say, that's crazy. So yeah, more money for the cops, please. And so so they think it's funny. They think it's hilarious, and then also make a joke. As my one buddy goes, that was my bedroom, and he goes, he's like, the car ran into my bedroom, and the guy goes, or where it ran into was my bedroom, and the cop goes, not anymore, and starts laughing. So it's just like, the best of the bros, between the tow truck driver and the cops that showed up. It was just, it was just a bro down. The best of the bros came out on that day. So just a wild kind of crazy. What are the chances? It was not on autopilot when it crashed. At least that's what the guy said. He said he was swerving to avoid someone who'd like cut him off out of nowhere, and so he swerved to avoid him, and that's how it all happened. But wow, just wild stuff. So what it means is I won't be settled in here. At least we still don't have information about how everything plays out. So so I might not, officially be moving in until, who knows, maybe later this summer. I don't know what's going to happen. I do know that an adventure awaits of some kind, or maybe I'm on a quest for the, I was going to say the hereafter. That's not what I'm questing for right now. Maybe I'm on a quest for like the next big chapter of my life, whatever that means. I'm on the, maybe I'm on my, am I going to start a family? Is that what happens because I can't move in? Is that what happens? That's a pretty big pivot, I would say. So let's not manifest that thing right now. We don't need to be going around manifesting things like that. But we got to get back on track here, and we got to start talking about Florida. So yeah, let's do that. Let's pause. We gotta keep the lights on, though. You know what I mean? We got to pay for some of this gas money that I used. So we're going to be right back. Don't forget, $3 a month gets you no commercials. So you don't have to listen to these commercials, and you can always fast forward. But just boom, boom, boom. Anyway, we're going to be right back. $3 a month over at patreon.com/Ryan Singer. No commercials on all of the episodes that come out. Thank you to the patrons, by the way. And to the if you've just signed up recently, love having you over here. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the support. And now that I'm kind of in the same place for, I think, at least a week and a half, 2 weeks, I'm going to get some clips up, and we're going to get some more stuff over there from the recent trip to Florida, so you can kind of get a peek behind the scenes about what we were doing down there, and probably some more information about it, because we filmed in January, we filmed now in May, and we're going to go back potentially later this year. So, and these are just, it's going to be an ongoing thing. And so I don't even want to think about the documentary at this point, because I got this other one, Fits, that I'm working on. So I can't even right now. But patrons will get a sneak peek to all that good stuff. So, and it's wild. I'm going to tell you about some of it when we come back right after this commercial break. So, again, thank you for being here. Okay, so we are back. We never really went anywhere, especially the patrons, that it just kept talking, essentially, with no break. $3 a month, just a reminder. I mean, you could do more. You could do $100 a month if you wanted. I'm not mad at you if you wanted to do that. It'd be much appreciated. I'd probably just be sending you personalized video messages at that point. We would just FaceTime, probably. And I'd be like, I got to tell you some crazy shit that I saw. I don't think about it too much. I don't try to, put on the brakes and, have reflection station over here. But when I think about some of the crazy things I've heard that, just in confidence that, I can't talk about on this show, or, other things that just, for whatever reason, not everything in my life, personal and or paranormal, needs to be content, right? I don't think that you have to save a piece of yourself to be a person, right? So there's lots of stuff in my life that I don't necessarily need to get into on the especially on a paranormal podcast. So there's lots of things, so if you did $100 a month, I'd probably just tell you I'd probably just tell you some shit. I mean, I'm not trying to get people to do $100 a month. That's a ridiculous amount of money. So, anyway, although if you're rich, maybe it's not. Who knows? I mean, if you're super wealthy, I guess go ahead. I wonder if ambition is a mental, if it's a sickness. I think maybe 100 years from now, we'll look back and we'll be like, oh yeah, people who are really ambitious, we find that there was like, some kind of, I hesitate to call it a mental illness, but, I don't know what the desire is to have a lot more than what you need. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and act like I haven't experienced that. I for sure have experienced that, whether it's attention, money, material goods, etc. Of course, I think about having like 3 houses, right? So, I mean, I'm not, to be clear, I'm not excluding myself from this, but I just wonder if we're going to look back in our future selves will look back into the past and be like, wow, they were so ambitious, they didn't realize how sick they all were. Because, I mean, we don't need more than what, we need. I mean, we shouldn't want more than what we just need. You know what I mean? I mean, that's why billionaires are just so gross to me. Anyway, let's get back to the investigation down in Florida that just happened. And wow, I mean, we had a couple objectives. One of them was to try to understand more what's happening to one of the people who lives there and in their own life and their abilities. And another one was that like almost like it was like a 10% yawn coming out because it's super late right now. But I needed to record this because I was like, I got to get this out of my head. So And then we also ended up doing some experiments, and oh my god, I can't wait to tell you about this. Now there was definitely a scientific bend to some of the action we were getting into on this trip, and I let other people handle the arrangement of such things because I am not a scientist. I had a phone call with someone who isn't a scientist either, as far as I can tell. We only talked for a few minutes, and it was one of these people who's kind of an academic type, and I don't think that they necessarily think they're better than people who aren't academic type. But in this world, there's a big difference between the idealist and the materialist, and and both sides probably think they're right or better off for believing what they do believe. And I'm on the idealist side. And do I think I'm better off for believing what I believe as opposed to the materialist side? I mean, would I be lying if I said I didn't? I think, if I were to be honest about it, I think I'm better off for believing in, coming from an idealist perspective, or I'd be coming from the other perspective. If I thought I'd be better off coming from that one, I would be doing the other one. So it's kind of built into it, right? Now, the danger we can come into in this life in general is thinking we know it all, thinking we know more than we actually know. And that's the beautiful thing about the world of the paranormal, is we are constantly reminded that we don't know jack shit. And I got to tell you, if, I was saying if even 50% of it, but now I'm going even lower. If even 20% of what we think we're getting into on this investigation is true, we're in way over our heads. It's just the nature of reality, right? Because, and I guess you could probably say that for almost any investigation that seems to be really going somewhere. That, that's why there's strength in numbers here. Because, to go about something like this alone, first of all, you would never come to, all the understandings that you might be coming to, because there is strength in numbers, and there's real power there. And, you're multiplying your curiosity by how many ever minds you're exploring with. And someone else's curiosity is definitely going to take us to a place that my curiosity never would have, or at best case scenario would have taken a much longer time for my curiosity to get around to it. So it is so much better to be surrounded by other curious minds, and it almost compounds the results by doing so. Now, we conducted a scientific experiment. We were there trying to test the conductivity of people. And the results were, to say the least, somewhat shocking. And they're probably more shocking than I even think they are, even though I don't really know much about, measuring voltage and all these other kinds of things. I just know that, nobody was measuring any voltage except one person. So that was, I guess, shocking. Did you see what I did there? I didn't even realize I was making a pun until I was halfway through the word shocking. So kudos to me on that one. I kind of gave myself a little tickle. So I don't know what any of this means. Right. And, understanding origins is a big part of my personal journey. And the very first episode of this podcast is called Origins. I love origin stories, right? And where do things originate? Where's the wellspring of these rivers of paranormal powers? That is a discussion. Well, that's a really loud car. I hope that wasn't too loud for you. Sorry about that. I'm right by a street, obviously. We all are. So I don't know where the well springs are for paranormal abilities, but it is a conversation that we got into. One of the interesting aspects about talking about people with powers or people with abilities And you've heard me talk about this for a long time, and other people have talked about this. And I think more and more people are probably curious, at the very least, about the connection between mystery illness, autoimmune disorders, and, trauma and paranormal abilities. Those things and their connection to developing and or enhancing or exploding outward the paranormal ability side of people, whether it's clairvoyance or, or any of the Claire sisters, clairsentience, etc., mediumship, channeling, telepathy, potentially psychokinetic abilities, etc. And I also like to theorize, or I think a better word would be to speculate, that near-death experiences also kind of create some kind of energy signature in the place where they occurred and within the person who has had them. And I think there is, at the very least, interesting correlation in the human stories of people I know, which are quite a few, who have had NDEs, near-death experiences, and have abilities. And I think that if we examine these stories and we compare them, and maybe with a finer, magnifying glass, we might be able to start honing in on or figuring out, at least in some manner or fashion, what these connections are, even though we still don't understand the wellspring. Right? We understand that, the near-death experience, you might be saying, well, that's the wellspring, right? Or the autoimmune disorder, or the prolonged periods of physical and mental pain and discomfort on the human psyche and on consciousness itself somehow creates a greater connection to a power or energy beyond our physical selves. Maybe that's it. I mean, I'm just kind of making that up right now as we talk, but that could be the connection. God, I don't want to say disassociate from your physical body and understand that, but you are able to, as the Monroe Institute and their guided meditations would say, you expand your consciousness. Your consciousness goes way beyond your physical body. And, I'm still trying to do and by trying, I mean, I was traveling a bunch, but I'm still getting in my meditations. Had a good meditation today on the Expand app. I still just do the free ones. You can download the app for free and just do the free ones. There's sleep ones, there's wake up ones, there's all kinds of ones. So we're expanding our consciousness beyond our physical bodies, beyond our form. And the further out we expand our consciousness, the more connected we can feel to things outside of ourselves, potentially giving us access to the information, the feelings, the emotions, the knowledge, the past, the future of other things, other creatures, other places. Remote viewing, I would consider remote viewing being able to expand one's consciousness far enough out to understand what's in your immediate environment. And the definition of immediate is relative, because if you're able to expand your awareness out to a great distance, everything within your awareness would be in your immediate environment in that sense. So if we can do that, boom, now we have access to more information or data, as the more scientifically minded person might just call this data. The more woo-woo wild ones like me would be like, man, you're connected to it all, man. Hey, man, you're really doing it, man. Okay, Todd. Todd loves that idea, and we love Todd, don't we? So when I don't remember exactly what started this tangent. I just know that when a tangent happens, I just I let it happen. I don't fight that. But when you're at a location like the place we go to in Florida, you feel an energy there, and there's a dualistic nature from daytime to nighttime there, and it still feels special and interesting during the day, but it feels different at night. And I haven't even talked about LSD Cabin. The I got to talk about this. There's a campground not far from the house, and we have overflow. Depending on how many people are going to be there at any given time, and people are coming, going, and different schedules, different dates that people can be there. So we have overflow, and this particular campground, like many of them, has cabins you can rent. So we get a cabin. I check into the cabin a couple days after I'd already been there, because I got there a couple days before I even thought I would, and they're like, "Oh, I moved your cabin from this number to this number." And I was like, okay, whatever. A cabin's a cabin's a cabin. And then she just keeps mentioning that she moved my cabin, or moved the cabin, because I had reserved a specific cabin for a specific reason, because I liked its location, and it was the closest one to the bathroom and to the building. So if you wake up in the middle of the night and you have to use a restroom, you don't have to walk all this distance, et cetera, et cetera. And so we got moved to one that was kind of the furthest away. And something else about this place, walking around, even during the daytime, it felt like you were on a movie set that didn't have the actors there yet. It was really, really weird, right? And especially at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning when you have to go walk to the bathroom. And it's just like a ghost town at this place. And you see RVs, you see, cars and stuff. But it's just so quiet. And there's no one around. And I just was overwhelmed with this feeling, this isn't real, right? This is staged. This is fake. This is all for show. It had that vibe. It was really, really weird. And I did not experience that last time. In January, Eric and I stayed in an RV over at this. Eric Connor and I stayed there. And then I didn't stay there the whole time. And then, and then some people had left. So then but we still had overflow. So Eric stayed there by himself. And I'll have to get Eric on the show and see if he'll detail the experience he had there. But the first night, there was a couple different nights that Eric and I stayed in there. On the very first night, we both separately at the same time thought the other person was walking around inside the RV, because it was swaying to and fro, back and forth, as if someone was just walking inside and shifting their weight in a major way to make the RV swing back and forth. And it wasn't until the next day that we were talking about it, it might even have been a day or two later, that we realized neither one of us were up and about walking around, and both of us thought the other one was, because on multiple occasions we felt the RV going back and forth, as if we were in some very strong wind that was going back and forth, teeter-tottering. And that's classic Bigfoot behavior, apparently. And God, but we're in like the middle of a campground, right? And I'm like, there's no way a Sasquatch or an Oma is going to come up and just start pushing this thing back and forth. But then I remember it was like 4 a.m, and this whole thing, this time, felt like it was just an empty movie set, with a bunch of RVs and cars there as props. It was interesting, to say the least, and not to mention the experiences inside LSD Cabin. I'm going to tell you about LSD Cabin, and I'm going to tell you why Eric and I started calling it LSD Cabin. I think we do have to pause here again. It's been about 20 minutes. I'm going to do a quick little break here. We're just one more time for some commercials, and we're going to be right back. Patreon.com/Ryan Singer. That is the Patreon page. Or just go to Patreon and search Ryan Singer or me and Paranormal You, and the page will pop up, and you'll recognize the logo. The beautiful, beautiful artwork by James Roper, the incredible artist who designed that logo many a years ago. Damn it, that thing is still so cool to me. James Roper, oh my God. Beautiful, beautiful art. You should check out his art if you never have. It'll blow your fucking face off. It's incredible. Anyway, we're going to be right back after this short break. And we're back. So again, thanks to the patrons. Thank you for your support. Truly, truly appreciate it. So LSD Cabin. What is LSD Cabin, and why do I keep talking about it? LSD Cabin is the cabin that we got moved to as I checked in. So it was the only cabin we had. To be clear, Matthew Jackson and his son Charlton, who, by the way, incredible having both of them on the trip. I can't wait to be able to show you some of this stuff, and I'll talk about some of the things that we did too. We did CE5 multiple times, so you can imagine what that leads to. And then we did a session. I hesitate to even call it an experiment. We did a session. We had an experience that Charlton had set up, based on some Aztec scrying. And so we did CE5. Then we set up 2 mirrors and we did a scrying session, 2 mirrors facing away from each other, back to back. And then right after CE5, go straight into a scrying session that just led to some... Oh, God, I'm so chilled up right now even thinking about it. And this was outside. We did this, towards late at night out here on this property. It was Bonk City population, us. So, LSD Cabin. As project manager or whatever, I wanted everyone to have a chance to, sleep inside the house, have a comfy bed, and access to an indoor plumbing, right? So we kind of rotated. We were shifting through, and a few brave souls slept in the Sugar Shack. Matthew Charlton, the first couple nights, slept in the Sugar Shack. Ed Brown slept in there, and Dan Lindholm ended up sleeping in the Sugar Shack on the last night, or the last 2 nights. I think the last night, because he couldn't sleep in LSD Cabin either. So, because there are 3 beds in LSD Cabin. So, not super comfortable, obviously, because they're cabin beds. So, the first night, after, I'd been kind of in the house the whole time. And so then afterwards, go to LSD Cabin. We get there pretty late at night. Maybe 1. I can't remember the exact time. And, after a week, once you get to 5 nights running around and doing, investigations all day and all night, you get pretty wiped out. It's pretty exhausting. And, I'm trying to keep track of everything and, all the footage and downloads and, all this kind of stuff, right? So we're all getting pretty tired. And, and I don't sleep well when I'm at the property. I've talked about that in the past. I had a terrifying experience there in 2019. In case you have no idea what I'm talking about, you can go back and listen to my encounter with a Sasquatch, and you can hear me recording that pretty much when I got back to LA as soon as I left there in 2019. And, I've had a therapist ever since, and I slept with my lights on for, a year or a year and a half. So this is that same property. That's the ultimate Cliff Notes version of the story. So I don't sleep well when I'm out there. So, we're at the most, and I didn't want to sleep late because, everybody else is kind of an early bird. And so, I didn't want to be missing everything. I had to be up. So, I'm always the last one awake, no matter where I'm at. It seems like. So I'm in bed by 5, in between 5 and 6 a.m. is when I fall asleep every night. Everybody else is up at 9 a.m., so I'm up at 10, or 10:30, whatever it is, trying not to, just miss half the day. And so I'm not sleeping. So I'm exhausted. By the time we get to LSD Cabin, I'm like, I can't wait to get some sleep. Being away from the property also has there's an idea of like, okay, I'm going to actually get some good rest because I'm not there trying to sleep. And as I'm trying to fall asleep, I'm not listening for noises constantly, right? So we get to LSD Cabin. Dan Lindholm is on the top bunk. He chose the top bunk. I'm on the bottom bunk. There's another bed. Eric Connor's in the other bed. Next thing you know, Dan's asleep. He can't get real comfortable. Eventually he falls asleep, but then he wakes himself up. And then he's just super uncomfortable. And he gets my car keys and he sleeps in like my car parked right outside LSD Cabin. And Eric and I are awake the whole time. We didn't realize it because, you want people to sleep so you're not going to be like, are you still awake? Every 15 minutes. It turns out, and then we kind of start chatting a little bit because we were both awake after Dan leaves. We're talking and it's just so weird. Probably didn't fall asleep until 5:30, 5:45 in the morning after laying in bed for, upwards of 4 hours. I had this experience. I had 2 experiences in LSD Cabin that I'd never experienced before. And it should be said that earlier that night, Eric had done a solo investigation inside the cabin for his live stream on, on TikTok that he does. I don't think that did anything to stir things up, but I could be wrong because a couple nights before, Matt and Charlton Jackson had both slept in LSD Cabin, and they seemed to sleep fine, even though Matt did say that it took him a while to fall asleep. So I am seeing. Now, I should also point out that earlier in that day, I did these Mind Alive glasses. They are audio visual entrainment glasses that flash patterns of LED lights at super quick or just kind of quick speeds, depending on how you adjust them. And you can adjust them while you're wearing them. And also, audio tones and things that are supposed to create and transition, get your brain into certain brain waves. And the ones we were doing, I think, were alpha. So these were glasses that we had got for the homeowner. We thought that they would help for relaxation when she was feeling stressed. So through Dr. Jeff Tarrant, who's been on the show a couple times. And I think we talked about these glasses. So she had gotten a pair, and so I tested them out first as the guinea pig, right? To see it, make sure they work and all that kind of stuff. And so I do that, and I make the mistake of not, ironically, not seeing in the instruction manual or the video that I watched that you're supposed to have your eyes closed. They're more effective with your eyes closed when you have the glasses on. So I had my eyes open the whole time, watching these lights, which was fine. I've done LED light treatment before. And so I kind of was expecting to feel like I was tripping my balls off, but it didn't really happen. This was much more chill. And so then I tell her, I was like, keep your eyes open, do this, blah, blah, blah. It's pretty good. I felt great afterwards. I felt amazing, right? This was in the early afternoon, and I felt amazing. And so she does it. She also feels great. So we're like, okay, this is a good first test on these glasses. We think they're, you feel relaxed. You feel, pretty chill after doing it on this particular program that we selected. So I'm like, this is a good sign. And then then cut to LSD Cabin. It's 4 a.m. I close my eyes and I'm trying to sleep. You know those Star Wars wipes, the transitions in Star Wars movies or TV shows, how it's just like from left to right kind of slow, or from top to bottom, or bottom to up, or right to left, or whatever. When the screen changes, they call those wipes or transitions. Well, I've never had those when I close my eyes on just scenes unfolding that are not a dream. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain this. So I would see a scene, almost as if it was a Polaroid photo, would come into focus in very muted earth tones. And it would be weird, right? It wasn't like human beings. There's something slightly different about the let's call them the personalities that were in these scenes, and they were pretty. They weren't fancy, they weren't crowded, they were sparse. Like it would be a scene where it'd be like this muted brown and dark green color, and there would be like just a simple table with someone or something just sitting at the table, but they'd have like a geometric head or something, right? And they would be like a pastel or like a beige color, and they would kind of like melt into existence as opposed to melt out of existence. And then as soon as I'd be like, what the fuck am I looking? And then it would just a slow wipe from top to bottom, and a new scene would start to develop like a Polaroid, right? And it would be some other weird, very sparse, almost like you're seeing an old play at a theater where it doesn't have a ton of set decorations, right? Where it's pretty much a table and a chair and, maybe one other thing on stage. Maybe like just like a bed or something, right? And something very, very stripped down and basic. And then as soon as I would see this other thing just kind of standing by like a single tree and be like, what the fuck is that? And then it would wipe from right to left. And a new scene would develop. And I start to freak out a little bit, right? I'm like, what is this? Because I'm not seeing things I've ever seen before when I close my eyes at this point. And it's almost like I'm tripping a little bit to a certain degree. And I'm like, is it the glasses that I did earlier? Like, because the pattern of the lights, what's happening? And I would open my eyes and I'd be staring at the bottom of the top bunk. And to my left was the wooden cabin wall. Now, when I'd open my eyes to try to stop looking at these weird, muted earth tone, almost like early or late, like Commodore 64 graphics, pixelated almost, then I would see a shadow slowly start to move up from the wall to my left as I laid there on my back. That's how I usually try to sleep, on my back. And then almost like an arm with like a nub for a hand, no fingers, would then slowly start to move from my left to my right, up the wall, onto the bottom of the bunk bed, and then would slowly, as if it was getting ready to start cuddling me or grabbing me or hugging me, however you want to, whatever connotation you might want to add to this shadow arm figure thing that was trying to encompass me. And I would be like, I would look away because I don't want to see this thing. And I couldn't, it was so clear. And I'm not saying anything to Eric, who I don't know if he's still awake or if he's fallen asleep, and I don't want to wake him up. And Dan has already left, sleeping in my car. So then I close my eyes to stop trying to see this shadow thing that's trying to cuddle up on me, right, or spoon me. Then I get these weird scenes unfolding inside my mind's eye that it's hard to explain when something is so simple and plain and undetailed, yet unsettling. Not in a these things are here to get me kind of way, but just like but almost in a psychedelic way, right? Well, not even almost, like it really has that vibe in a psychedelic way where you're seeing something, it's just so foreign to you, so unknown to you that it unsettles, because there's no context for it. There's no understanding of what it is you're looking at. And this just keeps going back and forth, shadow arm, close the eyes, muted, creepy Commodore 64 and psychedelic scenes like Polaroids, you know, developing into my vision. Open the eyes because I don't want to see this weird, like Lego creature staring at me as it sits on a step, to the shadow arm getting ready to, hug me again, to like, no, 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 closing my eyes, and then seeing this weird blob with sharp edges just kind of materializing, sitting at a table with like a giant fork and a knife in its hand, to opening my eyes to seeing the shadow thing. And it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I just couldn't get it to stop. I had to start, like, I tried to take my mind to a place, thinking of something very, very different, right? And whenever I'm in a situation like that, I try to think of, like, okay, what is something like very physical and primal I can like try to focus on, just like feeling something, right? Um, like, what does it feel like to have your, like, Jesus Christ. God, Nigel fucking scared me. I thought I was waiting for music to pop up. It's so crazy. Yeah. Nigel, you didn't edit out your disclaimer or whatever you did last time. Holy shit. I almost just screamed. I literally almost just screamed because I'm telling this crazy ass story that you're hearing, and all of a sudden I hear Nigel's voice suddenly talking about, I didn't understand. Oh my God, it scared the hell out of me. Oh, telling creepy stories to yourself at night. I mean, that's just a perfect formula for getting the shit scared out of you. Oh my God, talking about LSD Cabin. So, I don't know. I think it's probably 6-ish in the morning. Getting back to it. Holy shit, I'm unsettled. And it's about 6 in the morning, and I think I finally, just out of total exhaustion, fall asleep. And I think the same for Eric. And we're both up at like 9:30 the next day. And then, so you think to yourself, there's no way I'm not falling asleep tonight, because I'm going to be withered. I'm going to be so tired. So we have another long day, right? And it's the last day. And so it's emotional, It's so much fun being there. It's also so emotionally draining being there when you're constantly doing like paranormal talk, conversation, experimentation, exploration. Our digital recorders, and a location I'm calling Vanishing Point. Well, in the January trip, we had a digital recorder go missing. On this trip, the first night we put out the digital recorders, we got to pick them up the next afternoon. That one spot where it disappeared last time, digital recorder is gone again. Unbelievably so. Put another one out there that same night after the finding it gone. We go out again the next day. And there's no way that it's gone again. The digital recorder is gone again. 3 days, the digital recorder, when we went to retrieve it, was missing. The only time that digital recorder has not gone missing, or, 3 different digital recorders, was when we had a camera up to watch it on 2 different nights. Well, we put out another one, and we put out some tongs, and we attach air tags, GPS trackers, to both of them. We go out the next day, gone again. We are able to use the GPS trackers to find the digital recorder. And we set up a cam because we believe we found them in what appears to be the nest of a small animal. Like a den, right? But like not a Bigfoot, not a Sasquatch, unfortunately, right? Because we're like, this is something. And we caught it on camera. The star of the show was an armadillo. and it was the saran wrap that I was putting on the digital recorders to protect it from rain that we believe attracted the armadillo to it somehow. It was a saran wrap the whole damn time. And, my sugar fingers. They call me sugar fingers out there because they're like, you're sugar fingers because I'm eating cookies and cinnamon rolls and whatever else the whole time out there, allegedly. I have a sweet tooth. So it's my sugar fingers that created the problem. But I think it was a saran wrap and not just my sugar fingers. Nonetheless, second night, the last night we were there, Eric and I are up until 6 in the morning again. We just can't sleep. I'm not seeing the same things. I'm not seeing the shadow figure. I'm not seeing the muted Polaroids developing in my mind's eye as I close my eye. But there is a weird, heavy, thick energy inside the cabin. And every 30 minutes or so, Eric and I say to each other, well, if we're not asleep in another 20 minutes, we're going back to the house. Because Bill wakes up at 5 in the morning to get ready to go to work, to start getting ready. So we know he'll be awake. We can just go back there and sleep at the house. So we can at least get some sleep. Cut to 5:30. We're still awake in the cabin, not going back to the house. Cut to, I don't know what time it was. It was early. We both get up after having slept maybe a couple hours. And we go back to the house. Eric crashes. And I decide to drive. I decide to take a shower, drink some coffee, and start my drive to Los Angeles, California. And then a few hours later, I get a phone call that a Tesla has driven into the side of the apartment and that I may need to delay my move-in. And you know what I said? I said, okay, but I'm still coming to California, baby. You ain't going to stop me from coming to California. Okay. LSD Cabin, I don't think I'll ever sleep there again. That's for sure. Never will sleep in LSD Cabin again. I've never had a shadow figure like that before. But I wasn't terrified of it. I was creeped out by it, and it was bothering me, but I wasn't terrified of it, if that makes sense. It's just so strange. And I didn't even get into the compartmentalization of phenomena. But that's what I wanted to talk about an hour ago when I started this thing, was every time we go out there, it's different. It's a creature feature the first time. The second time, it's in January. It's almost like I can't even remember, what it was. It was very ghosty, spirity, right? Communication. And I didn't even get to talk about the new device. We don't have to talk about that right now. We've got plenty more of these. Because once I'm like really settled in over here and like officially moved in at some point here down the road in the future, I'm going to be, we're going to be getting back to, the old programming twice a week, interview plus 30 or bonus to the best of my damn ability, which is going to be fine. And I've got, other things, other shows, other programming that I plan on doing and providing for people who may be interested in them. So we're going to be really kind of amping up the production. There's other things, other shows as well that I'm hoping to be bringing to you that I think you would like and you'd find of interest. And specifically also I want to mention that the Paranormal Carnival, which is the live stream show, the weekly live stream show that I want to be doing. I'm vacillating between that and Late Night on the Astral Plane as a title. I'll probably put a poll up over on the Patreon page, or maybe just on the Instagram, just to try to get more votes, just to see. I honestly, I don't know what name is better, Paranormal Carnival or Late Night on the Astral Plane. I love them both, so we'll see. But but there is a compartmentalization, I think, to the phenomena, And I think it just wants to show aspects of itself at different times. And I think it's up to it to decide, along with, whether what intentions we may have set as a group. And specifically, the intentions going into these investigations are to help the homeowners and to get information for them. And documenting that is important for us, and because it's evidence for them to potentially show other people, right? And we are getting into some things, some territory here that is, I don't know, it's a little astounding to me. We do believe we've, established firm contact with at least one spirit there. We do believe that we've got confirmation on certain pieces of information regarding what might be occurring there as well. I got to tell you this real quick. I have a REM pod session. We've got a bunch of REM pods set up by a portal that we believe is down by the Sugar Shack. And it just coincidentally, it was where I had parked my car for the entire trip in 2019. My car was parked right in the middle of what we believe to be a portal. So we've got these devices set up, and we're trying to ask questions and things like that. And, it's not a lot happening. And I started asking, I want to talk to portals, right? And that was one of the missions on this trip, was to talk to portals. I can't say definitively one way or the other. I wish I could. I wish I could say we 100% were talking to a portal. His name was Daniel. But that's just not the case. And then also, on the other hand, I can't tell you that I tried to talk to portals, and I got to tell you, got absolutely nothing, because we got the opposite of nothing. It was weird. I got what I believe to be the location of the center of the portal for confirmation. We got the dimensions of the portal. It's bonkers, right? And how direct response this one particular REM pod is going off for me when I'm asking these questions. And we followed up with dowsing rods. Multiple people followed up with dowsing rods, and we're getting confirmation on this information. Now you might be like, this is all woo-woo fucking stuff over here. And you're right. It is. Welcome to the wild woo, right? And I'm going to find that footage, and I'm going to post a snippet of me having the direct responses from the REM pod about the portal. If I can find it, I got to get the footage from Eric. I still haven't got all the data dumps from everybody that was on the trip for all the stuff, all the footage they took. But I'm telling you, I'm gonna put a snippet of that over on the Patreon page. It's gonna blow your mind. I think it's gonna blow your mind. Although, sometimes we have these profound paranormal experiences, then we see the footage of them, we're like, oh, this didn't really. It never captures the pure energy and emotion and excitement of the moment. But oh boy, and not to mention these other things. Oh my God. And I've been binging all the Planet of the Apes movies, the new ones. I'm talking about the old ones. Getting ready to go see the new one, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. I don't have time to finish them all, maybe next week. But that's not related. Although time travel, things like that, who knows, maybe it is related. But yeah, it's just, ooh. It was bonkers. And I'm going to have to get into more detail about this, because I haven't even told you, like, there are some certain viewpoints of mine that I think are coming into focus because of these last two trips down there, and some things that I'm starting to believe about the nature of phenomenon, our relationship to it, and I think we can get into that later. I appreciate you listening. I hope this was entertaining. Oh, it's someone pulling into their driveway. I was like, what the hell is that crazy ass noise? It's my buddy Dave Waite getting back from the Comedy Store. So we'll talk to you soon. Check out the website, ryansterencomedy.com/tour for tour dates. I'll be out all over the place this summer before hopefully filming another special. Yeah, and so all that good stuff. But I hope to, and feel free to, reach out, for whatever reason. I appreciate you listening. I love you. I hope you love yourself. You should. You deserve it. And if I don't see you at a live show here in Los Angeles or on the road, I will see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.